I always think of re-surgeries as if you are going to do a rescue mission into the forest. So what would you do if you're going to do a rescue mission into the forest? First of all, it'd be foolish to go alone. So you would try to take people with you. So you'd like to have a good team. That's what I'm saying. You would also like to go anticipating what kind of problems that you may encounter. You may need, extra light, flashlights, and you may need to have backup plans. And so that's exactly how you go about doing re-surgeries, especially when there are no records. So the common indications for re-surgeries are, as you would imagine, overcorrections, undercorrections, slipped and lost muscles. It could be an unwanted side effect of a previous surgery or a new strabismus problem that has come on after you have fixed the original condition. This is a child who had originally infantile esotropia and now was lost to follow-up for about 4 years and presents like this. So it's obvious this is consecutive exotropia. And this is another child. So she came with infantile esotropia again, underwent a bimedial recession, and when I was just rejoicing, the mother said, no, look carefully, madam, something is not okay. Her eye is still going up. And then I looked, and yes, there is residual inferior oblique overaction. Maybe I didn't pick it up the original time, or this came on later, but this could be your indication for a re-surgery. Or say a patient like this. So he again came with no records, so I asked for old photographs. And then there is just a hint of a head tilt and maybe a little bit of hypotropia. And this is how he presented to us. And you can see there appears to be a right inferior oblique overaction. When you take a closer look, you can see that the superior oblique is underacting. And so we concluded he might have had a Brown syndrome and had undergone a superior oblique weakening procedure, perhaps a tenotomy. So how do we go about evaluating a re-surgery patient? First of all, a detailed history. And you want to ask for all old records and old photographs. And you may have to scrutinize all kinds of scribbled handwritings, people saying squint correction, OD, drops, only medication list will be there. Or there will be payment slip for surgery in the right eye, there will be bills. They'll keep the bills very carefully. Have you noticed? All the records will be lost. Yeah, and or they will say there were floods and then the records went away. And then you also think about any potential risk for anterior segment ischemia. Always, if there is a recurrent strabismus or a large undercorrection, more than you are happy with or anticipated, rule out myasthenia. The pre-op clinical assessment includes careful ductions and versions, and you look for mechanical restriction by doing a good force duction testing. And if there is any weakness is suspected, a good force generation and saccades, as plenty of examples Muralidhar showed you. Search for conjunctival scars, which means look at both eyes on the slit lamp. Yes, we do have these rude surprises. Sometimes the daughter-in-law has now come with the mother-in-law. Does not want to admit that she had surgery before the shadi. So, and then the mother-in-law has brought the daughter-in-law very sweetly. And there you are under anesthesia and you see the muscles are already operated. Everything is cut. And now the only person you can talk to is the mother-in-law. So you don't know whether to ask her. So, these kind of tricky situations you face. The other thing you look for is note for widening or narrowing of palpebral fissure. If there is a slipped muscle, then often you will see a widening. If there has been excessive resection, you may see a narrowing of the palpebral fissure. So, for instance, in this child, the conjunctival scar, even though there were no records, but the conjunctival scar sort of gave you an idea that, yes, maybe the medial rectus was operated on. And if you look carefully at this child, whom I originally showed you, that if you look at the palpebral fissure on adduction, not only is the adduction limited, but you can also see that the palpebral fissure seems to be slightly wider here compared to the other eye. And so, again, you suspect maybe the medial rectus slip could be the cause for the consecutive exotropia. Neuroimaging, especially MRI of the orbit, is very useful, and you can compare the muscle thickness on both sides. Slipped muscles may look bunched up and thicken. So those are the pre-operative preparations. Now, next comes the question, of course, when do you want to operate? When do you want to take up this patient for resurgery? Immediate reoperation is indicated if there is significant loss of rotation in the field of muscle action and slowing of the saccades, suggesting a lost muscle. If there's a large overcorrection after a superior oblique tuck, then you want to take the tuck down or reduce the amount of tuck. And if you have induced a large vertical deviation after a full tendon transposition, also you may want to operate right away. All other patients, it's usually we wait for, say, about 2 months, at least 2 to 3 months before you intervene. And the common reoperations, it's a spelling mistake, I'm sorry, I just noted it. A recurrent or a residual esotropia, and you find that this esotropia is more for distance, then you usually do a bilateral lateral rectus resection. This should read resection. You can re-recess the medial recti, but as you do more and more recessions of medial recti, you may get larger corrections per millimeter. Of course, you can do more resect on one eye as well for reoperations. How do you go about managing secondary exotropia? Yes, you can try minus lenses. And if your original surgery was a bimedial recession, then you assess the adduction and look for a slipped medial rectus. Like the example I showed you, where there was palpebral fissure widening and there was adduction limitation, then we suspected a slipped medial rectus. One should also wonder if there was secondary contracture of the lateral rectus, and if the deviation is greater at distance, then maybe lateral rectus recession is the procedure of choice. How about exotropia? You've operated an exo and there is the residual or recurrent exo, like the gentleman was talking to us earlier. You can again re-recess the lateral rectus. If there is still room, you test the abduction. If the abduction is still full, and that tells you that there is still room to play, then you can re-recess the lateral rectus. But if it is limited and there is lateral incomitance, then maybe a medial rectus resection is better. I have very little experience with bimedial resection, even though we say it's good for convergence insufficiency type of exotropia. I'd be happy to take inputs from others in the audience. And if you've done a recess resect as the original procedure and there is still residual exotropia, you could operate on the other eye provided the vision is okay. And occasionally you may want to advance the medial rectus, and you do this by first excising the pseudotendon. Usually the medial rectus is tight due to contracture, and you advance and keep doing force ductions, intraoperative force ductions, and doing an intraoperative spring back balance to see the optimal place where you want to place the muscle. So what about secondary esotropia? So you've operated on exotropia and the patient is now overcorrected. So you start off by trying base out prisms, and if it is a young child, you could give a full hyperopic correction. So when there is secondary esotropia, what is the question in your mind? You want to know if the lateral rectus has slipped. So you go test the abduction carefully. So that is the question in your mind. Is abduction limited? If it is, then you suspect a slipped lateral rectus. Next, you ask yourself, okay, this esotropia, the secondary esotropia, is it more for near or is it more for distance? If it's more for near, you approach it like you would approach an esotropia and you recess the medial rectus. If it's more for distance, then you advance the lateral rectus. And if you've originally done a recess resect, then recess the medial rectus if it is tight, unilateral or bilateral. Okay, so that is broadly the approach to resurgeries, and this can be found in any textbook. But I'm going to go on to actually what are you going to do at the time of surgery. Ask for extra help, ask for extra hands, ask for another assistant if you can. Have good lighting. We have shifted from loops to microscope, and we usually do it with the microscope, which has excellent lighting. But for those of you who do with loops, then you may want to have an adaptation, have a headlight. Or you may want to have extra focus lights that focus into your area of surgery. You want to use the Demars retractors or a Barbie retractor, which gives you good exposure. We want to use hooks like the Wright's grooved hook or the Duplessis hook, which are safer when you're dealing with very thin and tight muscles or thin sclera. you want to take consent for both eyes, because you may, the patient may, like we said, say I did surgery on the right eye, but no records. And when you go there, already maximal amount of surgery has been done. There is excessive, scarring of the lateral, or the medial is already placed at 7 millimeters. Then your hands are tied, and then so you want to have a backup of, I will operate on the good eye as well. So when you take consent for both eyes. Occasionally, we take help from the vitreoretinal surgeon, especially if it's a post-buccal surgery and you find everything is scarred, everything is stuck to the scleral buccal. You may want to take help with the VR surgeon. So you already alert them and say, hey, I'm putting on a tough case, a post-buccal, so could you be around, could you be free to come and help me in case I run into trouble? So we're going to talk a little bit about important points as far as the conjunctival opening. So we usually resort to a limbal opening, large relaxing incisions. Usually there is scarring over the original insertion. So as you're opening the limbus and creeping forward towards the original insertion, anticipate scarring, anticipate buttonholing. So you've got to be extra cautious there. The other thing is, if you have, the original surgeon has really gone and put the muscle back there, you could also get into fat pads. And you want to be careful because this may promote scarring later on. And sometimes the patient might have had originally a fornix incision, and that you may have a hard time even knowing whether surgery was done or not. So you need to search for scars before you even start. So, as I already told you, force ductions pre-op, intra-op, and before closing is vital. Inspect the sclera underneath. Sometimes the pseudotendon, you can get carried away and think that that is the muscle, especially when you're dealing with with thin, friable muscles and you're not sure. That happened to me. I thought this is the muscle, and I put sutures and everything, and it was all ready and to take it off, and then you took off the muscle, and then there was still something underneath. And then you go back, you find that that is the actual slipped muscle that is lying in a layer that is posterior. And if I tell you more of my stories, nobody will ever refer patients to me. But anyway, I'm sharing some of those to you. So always inspect the sclera under the muscle to make sure that you have indeed identified, isolated, and placed your suture on the muscle. Use adjustable suture technique whenever possible, because you are dealing with very unpredictable situations. I also use hangback recession if I'm not confident about how the sclera is looking. And if you're using an adjustable, you are anyway doing a hangback. And I usually check all the muscles before finalizing. And what I mean by that is, sometimes here you have found a muscle that was slipped, and then you have advanced it, but you don't know what the antagonist is going to look like. You don't know what you're going to find there. So sometimes you place this on a bow tie, you go look at the other muscle, operate on it, or do whatever you need to do on it, then come back and finalize this. So don't close all the layers before you have actually checked the muscles, all the muscles that you need to be operating on. Conjunctival closure, again, you may be dealing with excessive conjunctiva, you may be dealing with very little conjunctiva, so be prepared to recess the conjunctiva if required. And you may have to free up conjunctiva by undermining to be able to pull up conjunctiva for closing. Sometimes when you finish recessing, you may not find enough conj for closure at all, and undermining, both superiorly and inferiorly, helps bring the conjunctiva closer. I'm just going to present a few cases, share a few cases with you, and maybe we can solve these cases together, what the dilemma would have been. So we start with this patient, even though she didn't have any record, was sweet enough. She put together all her photographs with the years and brought it for my perusal. And here it is. So this is how she looked in 1992. And the diagnosis here is esotropia. Okay. So 1994. And this is how she is before operation. Yes, clearly looks esotropia. 1994 after operation. What do you think? Consecutive exotropia, that's right. And she did tell me, I think, that she was operated only on the right eye. So you can tell that it does look like now exo may be right eye, and this is 2001. Large exotropia clearly in the right eye. Okay. So this is how she was when she came to us. And you can see it's mostly a right exotropia. There is some scarring visible. Yeah, you'd agree? There is something pinkish looking here. And then what's going on when she's adducting the right eye? What do you think? What do you think? I think it's a widening. Yeah, there is a limitation of adduction, but there also seems to be a widening when you compare this picture with this picture. So, what do you think went on? So, the original infantile ET, yeah, she probably underwent a medial rectus recession, which has probably slipped. And that's exactly what we found. We found that medial rectus had slipped, and so it needed excision of the pseudotendon and advancement of the medial rectus along with lateral rectus recession. Remember, this is a large exotropia. This is not going to respond to only advancing the medial rectus. So you will have to think of the lateral rectus as well. And thankfully, this is the first post-operative day follow-up. I have to admit this too. Our patients in Shankar Nethralaya come from northeast and east and God knows where. So we have to click the first post-op day picture because we may never see them again. So they get into the Coromandel Express and then they are gone. So but this day of WhatsApp, my patients have now gotten very savvy. Madam, हमने selfie लिया. I will send you, madam. So, आप मुझे phone number दे दो. I'm like, oh, I don't want to give you my phone number. So we take the picture on the first day post-op so that we have some record. And, I think she's looking fairly satisfactory. And I hope she got married. I don't know. Okay, here is another patient. And what do you see? What is going on? Yeah, a large hypertropia. That's right. So, what would you think? And I can tell you that there was the depression was very, very limited. So what kind of problems do you anticipate? I can tell you, and these are my old photographs, and I didn't know how to take a photograph of a CT scan, but you can tell the inferior rectus, which is visible here, is absent there. Okay, so she basically had congenital absence of the inferior rectus. So here I was, I was rearing to go, and I said, okay, absent inferior rectus, I will do an inverse NAPS. Okay, without thinking, if a muscle is absent, maybe the blood supply may be, absent as well or partial. But here I said, no, I'm going to do an inferior NAPS, but at least I was cautious and I did a partial inferior NAPS. So I did a partial inferior NAPS, and then I felt very proud of myself, and then post-operatively, do you think she looks a little better? Oh, he says, no, come on, don't break my heart. Anyway, I thought she was a little better, but parents were not happy. They're already thinking of shadi for this girl. She's from Bihar. Shadi kaise karenge? Aap kuch kariye. So they luckily came back for me to think of another option. So now I said, okay, now I already done, the inferior rectus is absent, so there may not be blood supply. Lateral rectus, and medial rectus, I have done inferior naps. I have pulled half the muscle down. So what can I do? I can't touch another elevator. That's not right. I can't do anything to the superior rectus. Okay, maybe I will weaken the inferior oblique. So I got very excited. Okay, I'm going to weaken the inferior oblique. But for all of us, at least for me who I trained with Dr. Scott, you have to put the lateral rectus on a black silk suture and pull it over before you go look for the inferior oblique. So the lateral rectus is your very important reference point to go look for the inferior oblique. But I didn't think all that. I said inferior oblique, weakening, so easy, what is there? We'll just go open and weaken it. But when I went there, I found the lateral rectus was right in my path. So what I told the parents, you know how they always ask you, kitna time lagega surgery? 15-20 minutes? हाँ 15-20 minutes. What is that? Inferior oblique weakening will take 15 minutes. But then, remember, I did not anticipate that the lateral rectus is not where it's supposed to be. And I had a hard time, so it became a rather lengthy surgery. And so the reason I'm sharing this with you is, imagine the entire surgery if you can, the resurgery in your head. You go through the surgical steps in your head, talk to your assistant and say what all problems you are going to anticipate before you actually get into the OR. And thankfully, she came out well. Again, I don't know if she got married. Well, she's too young though. We'll wait for her to get married. Okay, I'm going to finish with one more case. And again, you're going to help me. And this kid came from somewhere in Africa. I have permission to show these photographs. So this patient had several surgeries in the right eye. That's all the information I had. Several surgeries in the right eye. And so this is how she looked. What do you think is going on? Some mesotropia, and there is an inferior oblique, perhaps an inferior oblique overaction. That is all you can say. And the several surgeries also said that she had inferior oblique surgeries. But you could tell that the inferior oblique did look like maybe it is still overacting. So we went. So sometimes I don't want to say it's in India, but sometimes you presume that nothing was done. So you go with a good faith that nothing was done. You will find the muscles where they are supposed to be. And then if you don't find them, then start looking. So in this patient, so preoperative testing showed that abduction was clearly limited. Okay? So that gave us a suspicion that maybe the lateral rectus is slipped, and that is why the eye has gone in. And that is exactly what we found on when we searched that not only was the inferior oblique where it was supposed to be, nothing had been done to it. But the lateral rectus had slipped. And so, again, post-operative, I'm sorry about the blurred photos. This is the father shot from Africa Uncentered. But again, she's done well overall. So my take-home message to you is good luck. Thank you.